What if I told you there's a build in PoE 2 that kills T4 pinnacle bosses in under 30 seconds without casting a single skill? No complex rotations, no resource management, just dodge rolling while leaving a trail of death behind you. That's exactly what we're covering today with the Toxic Snowball Pathfinder, a Caltrops build that turns dodge rolling into your primary offense and makes you invincible while doing it. Before we get into it, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching and helped us reach 50 subscribers. I really appreciate all the support and comments you've been leaving. And if you're new to the channel and you like builds that actually work without the usual hype, hitting that subscribe button helps me know there's interest in this kind of content. So let's dive into how this build actually works. The concept is surprisingly simple. Every time you dodge roll, you automatically drop Caltrops behind you. All you need to do is keep rolling and stay alive while your Caltrops do all the work. With the right gear setup, you can ignore T4 Artiber's combo, roll through Xesht's slams, and zip through 80% delirious maps without breaking a sweat. It's genuinely one of the most satisfying builds I've played in PoE 2. We'll get into the specific gear requirements and costs as we go through the guide. But first, let me break down the mechanics behind Trail of Caltrops. Trail of Caltrops is a spirit gem skill that costs 30 spirit and requires a martial weapon. Each dodge roll drops 3 Caltrops that deal damage when enemies step on them. The Caltrops are destroyed when triggered. With multiple copies of this gem equipped, you can have a maximum of 25 Caltrops active at once, provided you have 20% quality on the gems. The key thing to understand is that this skill scales primarily with gem level rather than weapon damage. By stacking gem levels through various gear pieces and passive nodes, we can push our Caltrops to level 36 and beyond. This gem level scaling is where the massive damage comes from. Beyond gem levels, there are plenty of other ways to scale Caltrops damage, including added damage to attacks, projectile damage, hazard damage, percentage thorn damage, critical chance and bonus from certain sources, and more. So our build strategy becomes clear. Stack as much spirit as possible, ideally above 180, to maximize the number of Caltrops we can have active simultaneously, and then use every available method to boost their damage output. Now here's where this build gets complex and specific. For our mapping setup in weapon set 1, I use a spear in the main hand with plus 5 levels to all projectile skills and 2 added attack damage prefixes. When choosing weapons for Caltrops, skill levels matter most. Total damage and added attack damage come second. Increased elemental damage with attacks helps a little, but everything else on the weapon, including critical chance and bonus, has 0 impact on our damage. In the offhand, I have a Guiding Palm of the Eye Scepter, which is a new item from patch 0.2.1. It creates a permanent cold storm around your character that periodically freezes enemies. The cold damage cannot be scaled by any means except the Intimidate buff, and it doesn't work with Cast on Freeze or synergize with most skills, which was disappointing to discover. However, it still provides decent cold damage, 120 spirits since I corrupted it, and a freezing shrine effect that helps with mapping survivability. Plus it has an interesting visual effect. For bossing in weapon set 2, I use the Widow Hail and Quiver combination. My Widow Hail is corrupted with 298% increased bonuses gained from equipped Quiver modifiers. Combined with 52% bonus from passive tree nodes, that gives us exactly 350% increased effectiveness. This means every stat on the Quiver gets multiplied by 4.5 times, turning the plus 2 projectile levels on the Quiver into plus 9 levels. This is where our insane single target damage comes from. The increased projectile speed on the Quiver is also valuable because we can allocate feathered fletching on the passive tree to make projectile speed apply to damage. I get 202% increased damage for my Caltrops skills from this interaction. Since my character is a Pathfinder specializing in poison damage, I chose Plague Finger Gloves so that all damage types from hits contribute to poison magnitude. This lets us stack poison damage incredibly quickly with Caltrops. The real magic happens with our defensive combination. Ab Eterno Boots allow us to avoid all hits when dodge rolling, giving complete invincibility during the roll animation. The downside is 10% less movement and skill speed per dodge roll in the past 20 seconds. To counter this, I wear Queen of the Forest armor. This unique disables all other movement speed modifiers, but grants 1% increased movement speed per 800 evasion rating. With about 36,000 evasion in combat, that's plus 45% movement speed, and we're completely unaffected by the boot's downside while keeping the invincibility benefit. Another advantage of Queen of the Forest is that we can swap to other boots without worrying about movement speed. You could use Trample Toe for better area clearing, Ghost March to dodge roll-through enemies, or Beetle Bite for 100% increased thorn damage, which applies to Caltrops. Most of the time though, I stick with Abiterno. Since we're using many unique items, we need to cover resistances with our helmet, belt, and rings. Corrupted armor pieces with extra rune sockets help as well. I prioritize a helmet with high energy shield. For rings, I look for added attack damage, evasion rating, resistances, and attributes. For amulets, I use Sure-Footed Sigil for extra dodge roll distance during mapping with weapon set 1. This is essential for quality of life. For pinnacle boss fights, I switch to a rare amulet with plus 3 levels to projectile skills to maximize damage, which pairs with weapon set 2. Both amulets are anointed with lasting trauma. Now, let me walk you through the passive tree and ascendancy choices, as the build requires careful planning across 2 weapon sets with different priorities. For ascendancy, I take 6 extra passive nodes and immunity to freeze. I combine this with Relentless Pursuit, which grants immunity to temporal chains and chilled ground, making our dodge rolling unstoppable. I also take Contagious Contamination to spread poison, similar to Herald of Plague. For pinnacle boss fights, I respec these 2 points into Overwhelming Toxicity for higher poison damage output. For the passive trees, most travel nodes are Intelligence. Starting here, I take Blur and Heavy Ammunition for projectile damage and stun buildup. Cat-like Agility goes on weapon set 1 for mapping. Next, Vile Wounds provides increased damage against enemies with elemental ailments, which synergizes with our multi-element Caltrops setup. Moving forward, I grab Crippling Toxins on weapon set 2 and High Alert on weapon set 1. Blinding Strike is crucial because the blind effect significantly lowers enemy accuracy, making our evasion much more effective. Subterfuge Mask adds extra evasion rating to with our high energy shield helmet. Back here, Master Fletching goes on weapon set 2 for increased bonus gained from Quiver. In this jewel sockets, I have an Against the Darkness, giving us 55 extra spirits with 5 notable nodes allocated in its radius. This is an important spirit source. Stacking Toxins is allocated on weapon set 2 only. Continuing the tree progression, I take Hazard Rearm Chance. Hazard damage goes on weapon set 1 for mapping. Wasting provides a substantial damage boost, and Careful Consideration gives us 100% increased evasion rating when we haven't been hit recently, which works perfectly with our avoidance playstyle. The second jewel socket holds a Megalomaniac Diamond that grants access to Efficient Contraptions and Wrapped Quiver. Efficient Contraptions is particularly valuable as it provides another 15% chance for Caltrops to rearm. I also allocate Escalating Mayhem for increasing Caltrops damage. Feathered Fletching is on weapon set 2, which allows projectile speed modifiers to apply to our damage. The Wrapped Quiver notable comes from the Megalomaniac we just discussed. This area also has several evasion nodes that I take, plus 2 dexterity nodes on weapon set 1, purely to meet attribute requirements. The third jewel socket contains a Prism of Belief diamond for plus 3 levels to Caltrop skills. Up here, the Poison Nodes group gets allocated to weapon set 2. Turned this way, I take the first 3 nodes on the main path and Spectral Ward on weapon set 1. The socket here holds an Emerald Jewel with evasion and damage modifiers. Kite Runner goes on weapon set 2, and I take Leeching Toxins for increased poison magnitude and sustain. In the upper area, Heavy Frost and Thin Ice are allocated to weapon set 1, mainly because we're using the Freezing Scepter in our offhand. The final jewel socket contains a Heroic Tragedy Jewel that transforms this keystone effect to 1% increased evasion rating per 2 intelligence. This jewel also randomizes nearby notable effects, and I was fortunate that the resulting notables were useful for the build, so I allocated them on weapon set 1. Finally, All the remaining nodes, starting from this point, are on Weapon Set 1, focusing on intelligence and 90% increased maximum energy shield to improve our mapping survivability. This passive tree setup gives us the foundation we need, but the real complexity comes from how we configure our Caltrop setups and support gens. As you can see on screen, I have 6 sets of them, each serving a different purpose. Since we're not stacking critical chance, the synergy between each set becomes crucial. The first set is mainly for mapping. It poisons enemies with added damage from Bursting Plague and breaks their armor with corrosion, which triggers armor explosions that kill the mobs. When mobs die, Bursting Plague spreads the poison to other enemies through our Pathfinder Ascendancy skill, similar to Herald of Plague. Those newly poisoned mobs get their armor broken, explode, die, and continue the next round of spreading. I've also linked Break Endurance to generate endurance charges when breaking enemies' armor. Combined with Charge Infusion, this gives us a constant more multiplier to evasion and energy shield while in combat. The second set is our main damage source. Scattershot triples the number of Caltrops, resulting in 9 Caltrops thrown from this single set. It sounds like a bug, but that's how it currently works. Rearm gives Caltrops a 25% chance to rearm after being triggered. Together with 20% from the passive tree, we have 45% total rearm chance. Delayed reaction drastically reduces Caltrop duration, but provides 15% more damage. Combined with rearm, this allows for massive damage bursts in short windows. Close combat and elemental focus provide additional more damage multipliers. The next 3 sets deal cold, fire, and lightning damage respectively. For the cold set, I've linked Immolate, which normally gives 30% extra fire damage against ignited targets from our fire set. However, since I've also linked Embitter, this 30% extra fire damage converts to extra cold damage instead. Ice Bite then provides 35% extra cold damage when this set freezes enemies. The fire set uses Salvo to periodically throw out additional Caltrops. Blind reduces enemy accuracy, which makes our evasion more effective. Exploit Weakness consumes the broken armor debuff from our first set to deal 40% more damage. Since we're constantly breaking armor, this becomes essentially a permanent damage boost. Innovate grants 35% extra lightning damage when this set kills enemies that are shocked by our lightning set. The lightning set focuses primarily on applying shock. I use Stormfire to prevent shock debuffs from expiring on ignited targets, creating prolonged shock effects. The final set is for stunning enemies and uses Execute and Comorbidity for additional total damage. For defensive skills, I run Charge Infusion, Ghost Dance, and Wind Dancer. On Wind Dancer, I've linked Punch Through and Arm's Length so that when Wind Dancer knocks back enemies, they take increased projectile damage from our next hit based on the knockback distance. Ideally, you want all Trail of Caltrops gems corrupted to level 21 with 5 sockets each. The complete setup requires 270 spirits for Weapon Set 1 during mapping, and 180 spirits for Weapon Set 2 during bossing with defensive skills turned off. I get the extra spirits mainly from the Scepter and the Against the Darkness jewel. If you find it difficult to reach these spirit requirements, you can reduce the number of active sets. Keep the first Poison set, the second Rearm set, and the Cold and Lightning sets, as these 4 are essential. Add Wind Dancer for defense, and you'll only need 150 spirits total. This build performs well in map clearing. Thanks to the sure-footed Sigil Amulet and the Avoid All Hits effect from Abaturno boots, we can zoom through maps fast and safely. I haven't had problems handling most mapping scenarios. It's even Valve Factory proven, which is notoriously difficult for many builds. I've tested it extensively in high delirium content, including 100% and 125% delirious maps, even ones with additional monster life modifiers. The build works fine, though it does lean toward the slower side. The clearing speed isn't as impressive because poison takes longer to kill tankier mobs and spread effectively. It's definitely doable, but I wouldn't recommend using this build specifically for farming super high delirium maps. I'd say below 80% delirious feels quite comfortable. For survivability, it's overall decent, but I need to be honest about the limitations. Because we rely mainly on evasion and dodge rolling as our defenses, we will eventually die to something, typically in narrower maps, regardless of delirium percentage, We're especially vulnerable the moment our character rises from a dodge roll, since we can only avoid all hits during the rolling animation. My advice from experience is to make sure you're not rolling directly into large packs of monsters in narrow passages. Try rolling to their sides in a Z-shaped pattern so that if you get body blocked by mobs, you have enough room to retreat. Also, avoid maps with increased monster accuracy, increased monster skill speed, and monsters have 200% stun buildup modifiers, as these can catch you during vulnerable moments. T4 Pinnacle bosses and Simulacrums are surprisingly easy with this build. For Pinnacle boss fights, we use Weapon Set 2 and equip the +3 level amulet, giving us at least level 36 for all Caltrop skills. Before engaging, I swap out Charge Infusion for Tornado Shot, which I link with Reach, Overabundance, and Font of Rage. I accumulate rage stacks before the fight, then just start rolling. T4 Xesht looks like a training dummy. He has a large hitbox, making it easy for multiple Caltrops to hit him at once. Just roll back and forth, and he's down in about 20 seconds before he can summon his slamming hands. Very straightforward fight. T4 King in the Mist follows a similar pattern. Roll into him, back and forth, and he's defeated in roughly 20 seconds before all the nasty stuff fill the arena. T4 Artiber tells the same story. Thanks to our boots, most of his abilities can be dodged, including his infamous combo attacks. We can skip interacting with his mechanisms and focus solely on rolling. Despite his frequent movement and teleporting, we still damage him as he collides with Caltrops we've left on the ground. Once he becomes stationary, we just keep rolling at him. A T4 Artiber fight typically ends within 2 to 3 minutes. For T4 Simulacrum, I need to swap one Caltrop set for Lingering Illusion. This skill leaves a decoy behind our character every time we dodge roll. The decoy lasts less than a second but attracts mob attention, causing enemies to attack it instead of us. This is invaluable for avoiding being swarmed. Beyond that setup change, there's nothing special required. Just roll around like you would during mapping and you'll be fine. Results are very stable between runs, and dangerous modifiers essentially do nothing to us thanks to our defensive setup. The downside is that each run takes about 15 minutes, which is a bit slow. Let's talk about the financial reality of this build. My total investment was around 45 divines as of 70 days into the league. The majority of that spending went towards spirit and plus level jewels, and the rest gets distributed across other pieces of gears. Here's the interesting thing about the market for this build. Many sellers don't understand what these items are actually worth for our specific use case. Sometimes you'll find incredible deals, other times you'll overpay because the seller knows exactly what they have. The prices fluctuate wildly, so patience can save you a lot of currency. The good news is that you don't need to break the bank to start experiencing this playstyle. You can begin with level 20 Caltrop gems and focus on stacking projectile levels first. A budget version that runs the 4 essential Caltrop setups can get you started for under 5 divines. You'll still clear T16 maps, just not as smooth, and the damage not as high. From there you can upgrade incrementally as you earn more currency. Overall, this is a genuinely capable endgame build with a unique playstyle that offers something different in a game full of similar builds. It's not the fastest mapper, and it's definitely not cheap, but it delivers on its promise of a dodge rolling playstyle that actually works for all content. Consider playing this build if you want a unique playstyle that can clear all endgame content, if you have the budget for the proper gear requirements, and if you enjoy the one-button setup. The invincibility mechanics and automated damage make for a surprisingly satisfying gameplay loop once you get used to it. You might want to skip this build if you need budget-friendly options for your first endgame character, if you want the absolute fastest clear speed for farming efficiency, or if you prefer traditional skill rotations and active gameplay. The somewhat goofy and choppy playstyle isn't for everyone. But when it clicks, it's incredibly engaging. The total investment of around 45 divines makes this more of a second or third character project, but the unique mechanics make it worth considering if you're looking for something different. Drop a comment and let me know what aspect of this build interests you most, or if there's anything you'd like me to clarify or expand on. If you find this video informative, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more interesting content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.